Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing you another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Injustice 2 Green Arrow action figure. Now, I was really surprised to see this guy in stock at the McFarlane toy store. I can't think of a single example where they had some McFarlane DC Multiverse figures before the other retailers. Pleasantly surprised. Hopefully, this is going to be the first of many times. So let's go ahead and check out the packaging. As you can see at the top, 22 moving parts, McFarlane toys, ages 12 plus, DC Multiverse Green Arrow. Here he is in the package. Looks like he has his bow and arrow, a quiver, display stand, and a collector's card. One side of the package, Green Arrow from Injustice 2. Other side simply says Green Arrow. The bottom got a bunch of credits, and there is a barcode in case that helps anybody. And on the back side, here's Green Arrow posed up with his bow. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He does come with a display stand, a collector's card, a quiver with removable arrows, and a bow. But before we take a look at those, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is Green Arrow, specifically for the video game Injustice 2. His real identity is Oliver Queen. They haven't made a comic Green Arrow yet. They made Arrow from the TV show, and now from the video game. This is going to be the closest we're going to have to a comic Arrow, at least for the near future. So let's take a look. Starting with his head here. Hair slicked back. Looks pretty good. Nice sculpt and detail. Kind of blonde or really light brown. He's got that green domino mask. He does have some side eyes going off to his right. He's got that sort of familiar goatee, pointed beard, although it's not nearly as exaggerated as some of the old school. Large shoulder pads, seem like they're very bendable, not going to get in the way. Double jointed elbow. Kind of armored suit, looks like sort of leathery armor. Double jointed knees. Large green boots. He's got some sculpted knives onto his pants. Decent texturing going on. Kind of odd little flap thing back here, looks a little weird. He's got a hole for the peg for his quiver on his back. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. I think it looks pretty good. And I like how these Injustice figures can pretty much substitute as comic figures pretty nicely. Not perfect, but they're pretty close. Now let's take a look at his accessories, and let's start off with the boring stuff. Here's his display stand. Typical McFarlane stand. Black perfect circle. It says DC at the bottom. It's got one peg for the peg holes on his feet. Very thin, very basic. Now let's check out his collector's card. As you can see, it's an image of the figure Green Arrow, just posed up standing there. Green Arrow from Injustice 2. On the back side, there is a description. If you want to read that, go ahead and pause now. Now let's look at his quiver, his arrows, and his bow. Everything is casted in pure green. Not too much paint detail. You can see the sculpting on the outside of the quiver. It's got some texturing. Can actually hold the arrows. It's got the peg to insert into the hole in his back. Then we have a bundle of arrows. See a little bit of sculpting where the feathers are. And then his bow, pure green, got some sculpting where the wrap, where the handle is. And the string is a little bit bendable. Here's McFarlane's first version of Arrow's accessories on the left, next to the new Injustice accessories on the right. Here's Green Arrow, without the quiver. And here he is, with the quiver attached to his back. Here's Green Arrow holding his bow. He doesn't come with a single arrow, so it's kind of hard to have him into a convincing bow holding pose. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, he's standing at about 7.4 inches tall, which is going to translate to just under 19 centimeters. Now let's check out his articulation. Starting with his head here, of course, it can rotate from side to side. You can look up about that far, down about that far, pretty nice. Can tilt his head from one side to the other. giving him a good amount of personality. Shoulders on a ball joint, goes out way more than 90 degrees. Shoulder pads are soft, very nice. They don't get in the way, they don't obstruct anything. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. He doesn't have that butterfly joint that most McFarlane figures have. Kind of see the gap there, but can't see it unless he really pulls his arm back. Bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbow, they go all the way in. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. He's got the soft goods overlay. Now, he definitely has ball joint his waist, rotate around, go forward and back. I feel like there's a little bit of budge here, but a lot of time with these soft goods overlay, it ends up being useless. So you're really going to get anything out of the waist there. Legs completely does a split. Not a ball joint, but a similar type concept. Rotation is pretty minimal. Go forward that far. Back, not much. Double jointed knees. Then his ankle here, forward and back. Can rotate, tilt, rock, and he has toe articulation. Here's Green Arrow perched on top of the side of a building, aiming and pointing his arrow. And here's a close-up of Green Arrow with his bow. Now let's check him out next to some other action figures, starting off with some other McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, next to TV's CW vs. Arrow. This Injustice Arrow is definitely taller than that guy. The older Arrow is not a bad figure, but he was one of McFarlane's first offerings. They've improved considerably since then. These are the only two Arrow figures McFarlane has made so far, hoping to see a comic version. Now let's check him out next to some other McFarlane Injustice figures. Here he is, with their first assortment of Injustice 2 figures, Flash and Gorilla Grodd. Shortly after, they released Dr. Fate by himself, and then the newest wave of Injustice figures consists of Green Arrow and Reverse Flash. Here are all the different characters McFarlane has made from Injustice 2. I'm really surprised they haven't made an Injustice Batman or Superman. Definitely contradicts their MO. All the previous figures have gotten paint variants. We have the Hopper Suit Flash, the Platinum Chase variant Silver Armor Gorilla Grodd, and the Platinum Chase variant Light Blue Dr. Fate. I'm not aware of any traditional variants for Green Arrow or Reverse Flash, although I know there's a Platinum Chase variant unpainted artist-proof Green Arrow out there. Here's McFarlane's entire Injustice 2 collection and all the variants. Looking forward to adding the unpainted Arrow to the list, and my collection will be complete. I don't really know specifically about any future Injustice figures, although on some of the leaked lists there's Gaming Red Hood or Gaming Scarecrow. Wouldn't be shocked if one of them ends up being from Injustice. I was also fortunate enough to get 3 of these Silver Armor Gorilla Grodds. I used these for Guerrilla Soldiers under the Gold Gorilla Grodd. Now, Injustice 2 is not the only video game McFarlane has made figures from. Here he is, with some of McFarlane's Arkham Asylum figures. Then, next to the Arkham Origins Deathstroke. And here, with the Arkham Knight Batman. Looking forward to adding the Arkham Knight himself to the Arkham Knight collection. McFarlane has also made figures from the upcoming Gotham Knights video game. This guy is more or less a giant. Here's Green Arrow, next to a couple of McFarlane's largest Batman figures. Batman from the Dark Knight's Metal and the 3 Jokers. Then, next to a couple of McFarlane's smaller figures, Rebirth Batman and Rebirth Martian Manhunter. And here, next to McFarlane's smallest offerings. And if you're curious how he fits in with McFarlane's comic Justice League, a little bit too big, but his outfit is close enough to the comics that it kind of works. Now let's check him out next to some other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, next to a couple of Lex Luthor figures. Then, with a couple of Lobo figures. And here he is, next to Superboy Prime and the Birds of Prey Harley Quinn. Then, with a couple of Mortal Kombat 11 Jokers. And here, with the Speed Force Flash from Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Reverse Flash from DC's Rebirth Comics. Then, with Batman Beyond's Unmasked Batwoman, and the Atomic Edition of Blight. And now, next to the Batman The Dark Knight Returns 2-pack, Superman vs. Armored Batman, here's Arrow, next to a couple of General Zod figures. Then, with the Future State Batman, and Dark Detective. And here's Green Arrow, next to the Rebirth Batman, and the Infinite Frontier Robin. Then, next to the Rebirth Martian Manhunter, and the Lois and Clark Black Suit Superman. And now, next to the Justice League Endless Winter Aquaman, and the Death of the Family Joker. Here he is, next to Ultraman and the Zernar Batman. Then, with the Rebirth Wally West Flash, and the all-gold Anti-Crisis Wonder Woman. And here he is, next to the Infinite Frontier Grifter, and the Injustice 2 Reverse Flash. All three of these figures are in stock right now at McFarlaneToyStore.com. And now, here he is, next to a couple of other McFarlane DC Mega figures, Swamp Thing and Clayface. And here, next to the Batman 3 Joker's Wave. Then, next to McFarlane's The Batman Collection. And here, with the Batman The Dark Knight Returns Collect-to-Build-a-Horse Wave. And finally, here he is, next to the Justice League Endless Winter Collect-to-Build-a-Frost King Wave. Now let's check him out, next to some other Green Arrow figures. Here he is, next to McFarlane's Arrow from the CW Arrowverse. Then, next to my DC Direct and DC Collectibles Arrow figures. These are also from CW's Arrowverse. And here, next to a Mattel DC Universe Classics Green Arrow. Here are all of my Green Arrow Oliver Queen figures. Here he is, next to my civilian version of Oliver Queen. Then, with John Diggle and Felicity Smoke, the team from Arrow. And here, next to a couple of Red Arrow figures. One's from the Arrowverse, and one is from Young Justice. Then, with a Mattel Artemis from Young Justice. Now let's check him out, next to some other Injustice figures. Here are all the McFarlane DC Multiverse Injustice figures they've made. And now, here he is, next to my Mattel Injustice figures. Then, next to my SH Figure Arts Injustice figures. And here he is, next to a Storm Collectibles Injustice Bane. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, to see how he fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane figure, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work my way smaller, but we're going to start off by checking them out with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. Then, next to some more McFarlane Toys, these are from different various video game properties. And now, next to some Jack-specific wrestling figures, and here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. Then, with some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here, with some NECA figures. Then, with some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, with some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. Then, with some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here, with some Mafex figures. Then, next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. And finally, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. Overall, it's a very nice McFarlane DC Multiverse figure. Biggest problem is, he's just too damn tall. It's like McFarlane has 3 different scales. They're smaller figures, they're medium figures, and they're giant figures. He's in the giant category. Beyond that, his accessories are good, but they could definitely benefit from a little paint detail. Sculpt and paint job are excellent. The figure looks great. Side eyes, little annoying, but they're not too bad on this guy. His articulation is actually very nice. Range of motion is pretty good on all parts. Only thing missing is a little bit more of a thigh swivel. If I were to rate this figure, as is, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. If he was just a hair smaller, he would easily be an 8.5 out of 10. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add it in the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.